The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars. We have the pleasure of speaking with Michele Tedder. She is an advocate for obesity, and we're looking forward to our conversation with Michele today. So, welcome to another episode of No Better Time Than the Present. I really enjoy keeping this engine running in terms of discussing, having conversations with other advocates. You know, sometimes we share the same issues, maybe it's just a different subject. I'm going to read Michele's bio, and she'll be with us shortly. Michele Tedder is an MSN as well as an RN. She's a passionate advocate for people just like herself living with a chronic condition. Having struggled with her weight since childhood, Michele knows what it is like to experience the negative impacts of living with a chronic disease like obesity. Michele was recently a recipient of the 2023 Healthy Voices Impact Award, which is sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. This award is given to health advocates to support the advancement of their work. Michele serves as a senior program manager at the Black Women's Health Imperative. She is also the founder of Village Empowerment Solutions, a consulting business focused on supporting organizations with strategies that improve health outcomes for people living with obesity, as well as other chronic conditions. Michele recently joined the National Board of Directors of the Obesity Action Coalition, a national nonprofit dedicated to raising awareness and improving access to the prevention and treatment of obesity. So, yay! So, Michele, I know you're waiting to get on. Don't go anywhere. Before we bring Michele on, however, I do want to get through a little bit what we're talking about today before we have our one-on-one. So today we're talking about obesity, okay? And why this is important. I don't know if people feel that it's a chronic condition, but that's something Michele will discuss a little bit further in terms of her advocacy. Okay, so what is obesity? Okay, obesity is weight that is higher than what is considered healthy for a given height, as described as overweight or obesity, which a lot of people who have chronic conditions, we know about the BMI, so your body mass index, okay? And this is a tool that's used to say if you're under or if you're over. Obesity in America for adults was last surveyed in 2017 and 2018 as 42.5% up from 30.5% in 99 in 2000. Okay, so in that same period, the prevalence of class 3 obesity doubled, okay, by 4.7 to 9.2%. Childhood obesity is also up, I believe, at 19%. Okay, so a high BMI can indicate your high body fatness, is what they term here. So if your BMI is less than 18.5%, it falls within the underweight range. If your BMI is 18 plus to 25 or under 25%, it falls within a healthy weight range. If your BMI is, 25 to 30 under, it falls within the overweight range. If your BMI is 30 and higher, it falls within the obesity range. Okay, and it's a big deal because I think a lot of us can, whether you agree if it's a chronic condition or not, it really is, because we all fall in certain range. We know for those, if you were thin when you were younger, now you may be older, you picked up weight around the stomach. We know these situations can lead into other health issues. Okay, so before we bring Michele on, because I know, Michele, you're waiting. Okay, I want to go through what are some myths. Okay, so BMI is the same between children and adults. No, that is not accurate. BMI categories for children and teens are based on sex and age, specific BMI percentiles, whereas BMI categories for adults are based on BMI only. Okay. Myth number 2, there's no such thing or type or range of obesity in adults. Now, this was something when I did my research was I thought rather interesting. That is not true. There's actually 6 types of ranges in terms of obesity. Okay, we have diet, we have nervous stomach, we have gluten-free food, we have genetic cause obesity, we have alcohol consumption, and we have sedentary obesity. Okay, and the cause of obesity is eating too much. Okay, I would like to think we all know that that's not true, but some of us are kind of lost, and some of us don't realize that there's other attributes that contribute to obesity, such as lack of physical activity, unhealthy eating behaviors, not getting enough good quality rest, high amounts of stress, health conditions, genetics, medicine, and of course our environment. Okay, so this is why this particular conversation is a big deal, because it affects a lot of us. Sometimes I think we look at the visual of what obesity is, not realizing that based on the percentiles that I read earlier, some of us may be close to those numbers that is suggested as overweight or obesity. Hello.
Hey, lady, how are you?
How are you? I don't see you though.
You can't
I
see
hear,
me.
yeah, I hear you, but I don't see
Oh,
you.
that's weird. So let's see.
Hmm.
Um,
If any of our people are on, if y'all can tell us, can you see both of us on the screen?
I,
Maybe we'll just do it without me not seeing you.
yeah, I can see you and I see myself. I see the two of us.
Really?
Mhm.
This is like the second time I'm having issues. So I wonder if it's something on
Yeah,
my end.
yeah, I can definitely see both of us.
Okay, so somebody gave a heart. So y'all can see both of us. Okay, that's really weird.
I
But I don't want to play around with anything and then I'll lose you. Okay, thank you, Solo. You see both of us. Okay, so we're gonna keep it moving. That's kind of weird. I'm just looking at myself, but okay. So how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing, lady?
Um,
Happy New Year and all the
thank
things. How are you?
you. Happy New Year, happy Valentine's Day,
All the
everything as
things.
well.
All the things.
Everything is great. And as I usually say, it's Friday. So Fridays is like my favorite day. So I can just tone it all down
I
from a crazy week,
I know
you
it's right.
know.
It's a good day for to be inside. I'm in Pittsburgh, and so
Exactly. And I think it's going to be snowing
yes, we're
soon.
getting a little snow. We're getting a little snow, so it's a good Friday night to be indoors, nice and warm, talking to
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much. So I just read your bio. I wanted to get all of that stuff out the way as people came on and all of that. And I just gave a little conversation about what is obesity, what we're going to speak about this evening, and just some of the myths that are connected to this particular condition. So if you can, tell us a little bit, like I know I read your bio, but tell us a little bit about yourself that maybe I didn't cover in the bio.
Yeah. So, I you covered a lot, and thank you for doing that. I would think that, for this conversation, just for people to understand maybe a little bit more about my own personal journey with weight, because I think that there's some important things that we need to talk about. And I appreciate you sharing some of the statistics, but I definitely want us to talk about the BMI because the BMI, well, we have a very complicated relationship. And so I think that we need to talk about that because I think there's um, a lot of problematic things with BMI, and they're starting to move away from using that as the sole thing that is used to diagnose obesity. But at any rate, I think I shared with you when we first met that I had weight loss surgery in 2017, and I have lost and kept off about 80 pounds, give or take 10, up or down, which is normal. I think the thing that's significant to note about that is that I have lost and kept off 25% of my pre-surgery weight. For those folks who may be listening who know anything about bariatric surgery, that's like the dream. Like if you can lose 25% of your body weight and keep it off for going on, I guess, 7 years now, that is success, quote unquote. But if you look at me, I am not a skinny girl and I am probably never going to be a skinny girl. And my BMI does not meet the skinny girl criteria, and that's okay. And we're going to talk about that. But I started doing this advocacy work around obesity because there's just a lot of misinformation out there. And there's also a lot of issues around access to full spectrum care around obesity. And so I really felt like it was part of my job in giving back to start to do some of this advocacy around helping others to get access to the same things that I have in order to maintain the success that I have had, which includes the full spectrum of treatment options for obesity. I've had weight loss surgery. I use some of the medications. I have access to lifestyle change programs. I have a trainer, all of the things that you need in order to maintain your health. And that's the bigger message is like, what do you need in order to get to a healthy weight as opposed to us focused on the BMI or not the BMI? Because you can be an athlete and have a BMI that is considered obese or overweight, but you may be completely muscular and be in completely good health. So that's why I push back on the BMI being the marker for, because people will assume that you're not healthy because you have a high BMI, and that's just not simply not true. So anyway.
Thank you for pinpointing that because it's funny because I think everyone's experience is going to be so different in terms of who they're around, if that makes any sense. And I know that a doctor that I'm about to fire soon, but that's like a whole other conversation. um, he goes by that BMI to the T. He goes by how old you are, what's the weight. It's just very textbooky. And I feel like this conversation is a little bit more to it. Like everything that I've read was like the whole percentile and is very math techy. But we know life is not like that. There's like nuance with certain things. It's not black and it's not white. There's some in between on each person's journey. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of weight bias amongst healthcare providers, which is another reason why I do the work that I do. You know, the old school, and honestly, I don't know if you know the history of the BMI. The BMI is based in a very, very racist, biased history. The BMI was developed by a Belgian researcher, and he was European, and the BMI was a statistical tool that actually he was using to figure out who was the strongest and the most healthiest, likely to be the most healthiest European. And they were males. That has nothing to do with those of us who are brown or female or what have you. It was never ever meant to be used as a health marker, and it still is not an indication of health. And then in I think the 50s, the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company decided, oh, this would be a great tool for us to use to exclude people from coverage for health insurance. So if you really go back and look at the history, we really should not be using this tool. So there's a lot of advocacy work going around that we need to be looking at other things like what's your metabolic health? Looking at things like your waist circumference, because waist circumference is more indicative of maybe what's going on with fat around your internal organs, right?
All right.
Looking at what's your cholesterol numbers look like? What does your your blood pressure readings look like? For me, I'm still considered obese, but all of my labs are within normal limits since I had weight loss surgery. I was type 2 before I had weight loss surgery. It went into remission. So,
Wow.
you know what I'm saying? So you could, but someone may look at me and be like, "Oh, well, she's probably got all kind of issues." And the truth of the matter is that I'm probably the healthiest that I've been in my like 30s and 40s. So we have to really educate even healthcare providers about that, because many of them are they're old school and they do not realize that that is a very unscientific way to determine how we provide care to people. So yeah. So I was kind of chuckling as you were talking about firing physicians. I'm the queen of firing physicians. If you're not listening to me, and I think you are not educating yourself around the latest and greatest scientific reasons for, the treatment that you are recommending to your patients, then you need to go. And anybody who's listening, I encourage you, if your physicians or whoever your healthcare providers are, if they're not listening to you, you need to shop and you need to find someone who is going to listen, because we're not all the same. Even within cultures, we're different, So I think that it's really important for us to understand that. But when it comes to weight, I mean, the new research is showing that our weight is regulated very much like our temperature is regulated. You can't you can't change how your temperature is regulated, right? Like your 98.6, that's what the
Right.
brain and all the systems say that's what it's supposed to be. Well, your body is always trying to get to whatever that weight is that it thinks. Now, it may be a higher weight than it should be, but it's always trying to get to whatever that weight is. And when you lose massive amounts of weight, it triggers something that says, oh my gosh, we need to gain that. So your body's always fighting you. Now, that's not to say that we should just throw our hands up and say, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not exercising, I'm not doing anything. I'm sharing that to say because that is true. When we live in larger bodies, we do need a comprehensive treatment plan in order to get to a weight that is healthy for us as individuals, so that those metabolic things that we worry about, they put us at risk for the 230 medical conditions that are associated with obesity, right? That's what we want to go after. We want to be able to look at how do we get to a healthy weight so that we can avoid those complications. So it's not a one size fits all. It's not, and it's not your fault. It's really a very complex disease that you're dealing with when you're living with obesity. Very much like if you're living with diabetes, you're living with heart disease, anything that you're living with that you're managing, um, it's the same. It's the same. So
So let me ask you, because you hit upon that, how and when did you know that, you know, we live in a world of terminology, terms, right? So how did you know, or when did you know that obesity was considered a chronic disease?
well,
And why did you think it matters in such to be listed as a chronic condition?
Well, it wasn't even declared a chronic disease until by the American Medical Association until I think I always get the years mixed up, either 2013 or 2015. It's very recent. Okay. So up until that point, it was just like, oh, it's your fault. You need to exercise more. You need to eat less. You need to do whatever. So I mean, that's one problem. Um, I was blessed to have a PCP who saw me struggle. And to be honest with you, even as a well-educated healthcare professional myself, I had a lot of internal bias, weight bias about it, because I had struggled with my weight my entire life. So I just thought I wasn't doing enough. I was doing all the things. I would even start like initiatives at my church that people were losing weight. And I'm like, how come I'm not losing weight?
Right.
I would lose some weight, but quickly gain it back, all of those kind of things. That's a really difficult thing to live with, right? And then when the external world is always telling you, oh, you're not just doing enough, you start to internalize a lot of things. But back to the PCP that I had, she saw me. She saw me, she built a relationship with me, and she was the person who sat me down and said, Michelle, this is after she watched me struggle all these years. And no matter what I did, she was right there with me. She said, listen, she said, this is not your fault. And she's like, you were doing all the things. And so she begged me to consider weight loss surgery. And I was not really feeling that. And, in our culture, that's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why do you want to do that? You shouldn't do that. This is. But what she explained to me was that this was a disease. And so she's like, you're a great candidate. The reason you're a great candidate for it is because you're doing all the things. You are working on your nutrition. You are working out. You're exercising. You're doing all the things, because nobody gets a pass from those things. I don't care what you do. You could do weight loss surgery, you do the medications. Listen, I do them all. And if I promise you, if I did not do all of those things, I would gain the weight back. I know. I mean, it just is what it is, because it's a disease that it's recurring, and you have to always be managing it. But she's the person who really validated me. She saw me. She helped me to understand and challenge my own internal weight bias towards myself. And that's when I was able to open my mind up to other options, other treatment options. And I'll tell you, it was the best thing I could have ever done. It really, I mean, it changed my life completely. There's things that I can do now that I know had I not done that. And it was a tool to help me to do what I couldn't do on my own completely. So just to answer your question, it was I too, even being a nurse and knowing a lot of different things in medicine, I too was biased towards myself. Like, why couldn't I do this? It was a lot of guilt and shame around, like, I'm doing all these things, but why isn't this working? And because it's a disease that it requires a lot of tools.
Right. I think you put something right on, nailed it on the head in terms of having a PCP that kind of goes a bit far and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what a lot of us lack.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm getting ready to fire someone soon, but that's another separate
Mm-hmm.
conversation. um,
Yes.
but yeah, because that really makes a huge difference in terms of your experience to whatever it is you have going on. So, what is like the biggest pet peeve that you have in educating folk about the cause of obesity?
Well, the fact that there's a lot of work to be done. There's still so much weight bias. And again, like I said, a lot of it's from healthcare providers. I remember going to an orthopedic surgeon. I had injured my knee in one of my million attempts at losing weight. I'd hired a trainer, and she had me doing squats. And I had
Mm,
torn a meniscus, but didn't know that that's what it was. And so I kept saying that, my knee was hurting. And my biggest complaint, I love to dance. And so my biggest complaint was I cannot dance. Like,
no.
I don't know what's going on, but something's going on. So I saw, I think, 3 or 4 orthopedic surgeons. Each and every one of them said, "Oh, well, you just need to lose some weight." And one, the one I saw before I finally found the right one, said to me, "Lose 50 pounds. Come see me in a month, and we'll talk about." Absolutely. And I was mortified. I remember walking out of the office just feeling so defeated, so defeated. And I had another physician who was a back doctor, and I told him what was going on. And he said, "Listen, I go see," he gave me 2 names that were friends of his who happened to be orthopedic surgeons. And I went to the one, and he said, "This is ridiculous." He said, "Your knee should have been fixed 6 months ago." So, this is why I go hard. It's like go hard or go home in terms of educating professionals, legislators, the common folk who still think this is your fault. This is, you just need to eat less, you need to exercise more, or diagnosing me with something or dismissing me before
Mm-hmm.
you even investigate what is happening. That's just this implicit bias. So that's that because it's dangerous. If someone walks into your office and says that they're having chest pain, you're not going to start talking to them about their eye, right?
Right.
You're not. You're going to do some questioning around whether or not, or are you having lightheadedness, or you're going to look at that from a very different lens. So it shouldn't be any different than someone who walks into your office who's living with obesity or is at a heavier weight. The first thing that you want to come for is their weight, and they came to you because they're saying that they're having stomach pain. And so that's how a lot of medical errors happen. And it happens a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
that is my biggest pet peeve, is that you don't ever see someone from just the naked eye, or you judge them based on their size or their color or whatever. It's You need to evaluate people from the whole person. And like, just like you would anybody else, if they came to you with cancer or diabetes or any other illness, you would not judge them or you would not dismiss them. At least I would hope not. And so that's that is something that I'm really, 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 really passionate about.
Right. I totally agree with everything that you just said. And it kind of hit me as you're saying, because I thought of my mother who died of lung cancer. And just that whole dismissive thing, it just brought me back to some of the things that she experienced, that perhaps if things were caught earlier, she'd still be here with us. So that it is very dangerous to dismiss people, and not dig a little deeper in terms of what they have. And before I go to the next question, that's absurd. Who loses 50 pounds in a month?
How about that? Did you catch that? Right. I said, I'm going to just drop that. Like 50 pounds in a month. I'm like,
And then come back to me like, like you buying a used car or something. Like, say what now?
Exactly. 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 And I think too, as women, oftentimes, and I mean, the research shows that women are misdiagnosed and dismissed, and Black women in particular are often dismissed, not taken seriously when they their healthcare providers. Hence why we have so much mistrust, why we don't go to the doctors many times, because we just, don't feel safe in those environments. So
Right. It's like this is like a whole conversation.
yeah,
Maybe I'll do a
that's another
special.
topic. Yeah.
Right. Maybe I'll do like a round table situation because I know we kind of hit on this with another guest like probably last year or the year before. And it gets under my skin with some things, but woosah. Okay, so let me ask. I think you really answered this because I was going to ask, what are two of the most prevalent and negative outcomes when we speak about this type of chronic condition? But I think you hit upon that.
Yeah.
The whole
Well, I was
bias.
saying that, I mean, with you know, obesity, there's like 230 other medical conditions that, are associated with obesity, right? So I mean, the biggest issue is misdiagnosing. If someone comes in and all you're focused on is their weight and you don't ask enough questions, if I'm coming to you for a headache, and you're saying, well, have you thought about losing some weight? I didn't come to you to talk about my weight. I came to you to talk about my headache. So and I'm not saying that healthcare providers, that's a whole nother thing. I think that's the book, is how healthcare providers need to kind of back into that conversation. I'm not saying we don't need to talk about it, but I think that we cannot have this mindset, or again, this implicit bias that says that everything that is ailing me has to do with my weight, because it's not true. And the other thing too is that there's many people who fall into the BMI categories of being obese that are perfectly healthy. There's many people who are perfectly healthy, right? So I think that um, the danger in having any type of bias is that you can miss some very, very serious health issues for people, that if someone picks up on it, you can save lives. So
Exactly. And
it's
not only
really important.
that, just to piggyback off of that, perhaps by going through the whole textbook structure of, oh, well, you're in this percentile, he can take this drug. Maybe it's not time for you to take a drug. Maybe there's other actions or options that you can consider. But if your doctor is just looking at the textbook and boom, this number, this is you. Like if we're doing stuff like that, that's already also telling you it's time to find somebody else
Yeah,
because
care should be collaborative. I don't
mhm,
care what the situation is. I don't care what you are living with. I mean, it doesn't matter. Care should be collaborative, and meaning that you and your care providers should be partners. This is not a hierarchical kind of a relationship or situation. It's like, well, I'm a doctor and you should do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, your physician should be working alongside you, wanting to hear what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, what do you feel comfortable with. It is he or she's job to provide you with evidence-based information for which you can be empowered to make an educated decision. But you should be partners. This is not a thing of where, like, okay, well, the book says this, and so you should fit into this, and you ought to do X, Y, and Z. First off, evidence-based is only as good as the people that they did the studies on. We all know that many of us are
okay.
not part of those studies, but that's another podcast. I mean,
Oh, you want to preach? You want to preach Friday? I thought it was Friday, not
okay.
Sunday.
so, so
Okay.
right. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing. It's like, so what are you referring to, and who was part of that study that you are applying to me? That, so really, if your provider is not coming from a collaborative spirit, an approach, whatever we want to call it. You need to rethink it, and I think we have to be able to be advocates, right, of our own health. Nobody is more of an advocate for you than you. You know your body. You are the expert about your body. You are the expert about what you're feeling. You are the expert about what it is that you feel comfortable with. And so you need to be armed with that and armed with enough information. And you have a right to ask your providers to provide you with that kind of care. That's responsible, ethical care, as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree. And I think the consensus with all of the guests that I've had have said the same thing. Okay, it's got to be another way, but it doesn't really have to be another way, because if you're not getting the quality, just like if you buy a new purse, if the purse looks ragged and it costs $500, okay, well, let me ask the manager, what's with this? Or am I getting a percentage off? It's a whole thing.
Hmm.
So I think we need to take that same thought when we deal with our health. If you're asking your doctor a question, and if there's any kind of thing that's off, where the dialogue between the two is not doing it,
Right.
that's telling you, okay, well, let me go to the next.
Hmm.
So let me ask you, in your advocacy, which you're doing some wonderful work, because I did some extra nosy research. And I just I love that we did meet, and then we did have like a little conversation as well to get to know each other and our advocacies. Um, what is one thing that makes you happy in advocating for this group? And what is one thing that makes you sad?
I think the thing that makes me very happy is that I do see progress, right? I do see the needle moving. I mean, the fact that the AMA has put on record, come out and said that obesity is indeed a complex disease that needs treatment. That's a huge win. So that makes me very happy. The fact that I'm in so many rooms and we are really having very serious, intentional, hopefully transformational conversations about this, and that there's a lot of activity going on around changing the messaging, the public messaging, public health approaches to how we address and how we treat people living with obesity. So that really does my heart good and makes me know that my work and the work of my fellow advocates is not in vain. you
Exactly.
know and like I said, and there's a lot of good physicians and other healthcare providers and organizations who were all at the table saying, hey, some things need to change and people need greater access to care. There's some policymakers who are at the table who are really helping with this fight. So that excites me and makes me very happy. I think what makes me sad is when I hear someone still experiencing weight bias when they go to a trusted place or a trusted care provider and they don't get the respect and the care that they deserve. That makes me sad and angry. But, that's part of this work. And that's why we do what we do, is to continue to educate and try to change the narrative. So, I hope for a world in which everybody understands that obesity is a disease and that it's not something to marginalize people for, blame people for, treat people poorly or whatever. So, I hope that before I leave this earth, I will have been someone who has helped to make that happen.
That's awesome. I think as advocates, I think we all hope that we help in moving the needle a little bit in terms of whatever our advocacies are, that we help do our little part. So let's change gears just a tad. So I'm also in the whole fitness profession. So let me ask you, do you think exercise is like the public consensus in maintaining weight, or is it more to that? And I kind of spoke about that a little bit in terms of the different types of obesity and just what the public opinion is in terms of, okay, how do you lose weight?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's simple. Oh, let me change my diet. Or, oh, let me exercise. So do you want to speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, my messaging, you'll never hear me say that it's either or, it's one thing or the other. It's an and situation. This is a disease in which you need all of the things. Now, do I think, you can't out exercise, poor nutrition. I mean, that's just not a thing. That's not going to happen. But I think that if you have the right tools in the toolbox, right, if you're paying attention to your nutrition. And I say that word intentionally, not diet, because diets come and go, and there's 500 different things. So believe me, I've tried them all. But when you start to look at good nutrition, where you're eating healthy, whole foods, you know what I'm saying? Fruits, vegetables, all of those things in a balanced nutritional plan. Exercise, I think I have found for me is that exercise is great in terms of my mental health, in terms of keeping myself physically strong and active. And that's a really important piece. But I don't think that exercise alone has ever been the thing that has made me lose weight. I think it has been the combination of all of the tools. For me, and weight loss surgery is not for everyone, so I don't want anyone to think that I'm pushing that you do one or the other, because everybody has to have their own individualized treatment plan. For me, that was a very important piece, because I've never had the kind of success with weight loss than until I did that. But that was just the one tool, right? I use some of the newer anti-obesity medications as part of my maintenance. I still go to the gym several times a week, and what strength training is a very important piece too, right? So that you're not losing muscle
Right.
mass. So I think that was a long way to say that I think that it's an important piece of the toolbox. And so that's why, anytime that I sit at anybody's table in front of anyone advocating about this, it's not, well, we should have lifestyle change programs, but we shouldn't have, medications, or we should have medication. No, we need to have access to all of them. Just like folks living with diabetes need to have access to various medications. You don't know. Some people are on insulin, some people are on drugs that are not insulin. You don't know what's going to work for someone, because all of us are wired very differently. So it's the same thing in terms of treating obesity or higher weights or whatever, is that you kind of have to try a little of this, a little of that. And in most cases, it's the combination of multiple things that will help you get to a weight that is healthy for you.
I totally agree. I think for my journey with multiple myeloma, it was a shift and it was a change. So not only was diet something to consider, when to eat, what to eat, it was exercise, when to do it, when I'm able to do it. It's like a whole combination. And I think sometimes a lot of us, we want a quick fix. Sometimes it's not just the medication
That's
alone.
right.
When we say a health change, changing your whole health journey,
Yep.
it really is that,
Yeah.
it
It
really is.
is that. Listen, I'm gonna tell you, I don't know. And no shade on people who are fortunate enough to, have the GLP-1s and they lose like massive amounts of weight. Listen, your girl, that's not my story. I'm like, I'm still over here on the struggle bus. And I'm like, what is happening? How come I can't lose another 50 pounds? You know what I'm saying? So I share that, openly, because everybody thinks like this is going to happen and you're going to lose 500 pounds if you do X, Y, and Z. That's not true. It's not, it's not true. It's like you are an individual. Your body, your chemistry, all of it is highly individual. So what may work for me, it might not work for you. and vice versa. What your treatment plan, what your doctor and you come up with that works for you, it might not be the same for me. I mean, chances are it probably won't be the same. And that's okay. But I think we have to manage our expectations and know that all of this stuff that we've been fed, that, it's a one size fits all. And if you do, X, Y, and Z, that it's going to magically give you these results. It's not true. Let me be the one to tell you, it's not true.
And I
It's
and
not
I'll second that. I'll second that. And it's a little unfortunate because I say all the time, sometimes a lot of us, we live in a bubble. And until certain things happen to you, then you see like the whole picture. Like some of us just see part of the picture because they don't walk in that experience.
right.
But unfortunately, if things happen where now they are part of this experience, then they see that, oh, it's not just doing option A. I really have to do option A through option Z if necessary, you know. So it is very enlightening.
Yes. It is. I mean, this the struggle is real, no matter what you're dealing with. And I think that, there are certainly for everything, there are some foundational things, right, that are true. I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that, a diet of like chips and ice cream every day is probably not going to fare well.
Right.
That's probably not going to be the best thing. But if a balanced diet of fruits, vegetables, moving your body, getting air, doing, all of those things, managing your stress, all of those things are kind of foundational. I think no matter what, ails you, those are just basic kinds of things that are good for everybody, right? But when you really get down to the specifics of what is going to work specifically for your situation, that's where you've got to really have an open mind and understand you can't compare yourself to other people because you are you. You are you. And that's a beautiful thing.
It
Mhm.
is. It really is because we're all God's children and we're all so unique,
That's
you
right.
know. And I don't think people embrace that enough that we are so very
That's
unique. So,
exactly right.
you know, so that kind of leads into this next point. How comfortable are you in your own skin? And how important is self compassion in your advocacy?
Oh, that's a loaded question, girl. she gonna, wait, she gonna really ask. She gonna put me out here, like. You know what? I'm going to say I'm a work in progress. I think that, for the most part, I have, because I've done a lot of work on myself, including therapy. That, y'all, for those of you who don't have a therapist or never had a therapist, get you a therapist because the head work is important for the heart work. All right. It really is. Um, so I would say that I am 90% comfortable in my own skin. I think that one of the things that you have to manage when you have a large amount of weight that you have lost, right? There's a lot of skin left behind. So there's a lot of transitioning that goes on. And I've had plastic surgery on several parts. And recently I just had a breast reduction, which is life changing. It was amazing. But I think that again, because we are fed so many perfect images in our world, commercials, that, Hollywood, we're fed so many perfect images, which are not true, right? They're not. What you see isn't necessarily what you see. I think that sometimes we can internalize and be somewhat hard on ourselves. I think that what I can say emphatically 100% is I know that because of my struggle, I am walking in the call and purpose that is upon my life. And I feel like that if I had not, um, I'll say, been chosen to live with this disease called obesity, I probably would not have known who I am and my own power in some really strange way. And I just, I have come to really embrace that and know that as much as and my younger self would never have felt this way, but I think my older self really understands what it means to have a struggle, but know that that struggle is absolutely your purpose. So, so I think that's a long way of saying that overall, yes, but I'm still a work in progress.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Yes,
You know.
yes.
So this was like a wonderful conversation. I have like three other quickie to before we wrap up. But name a healthy treat on a long day that brings you joy.
Oh, well, there's a couple of things that I like. So it just depends. My taste buds tend to be wired more on the sweet side.
Okay.
Um, so one of the things that I like, actually, this is sometimes a morning treat. I like the Fairlife protein chocolate shake, but I like
Okay.
it with a half of a banana and a tablespoon of peanut butter, blended in the Ninja with a handful of ice. Amazing. That's one of my favorite healthy things. Um, if I'm wanting something warm, um, well, there's a couple things. I like shrimp, and so I think Bird's Eye or some of those make a um, riced cauliflower risotto that you can just kind of put in the microwave. And I like to throw shrimp in that, and that's one of my good treats in the summertime because I'm a summer winter food person. Don't
Okay.
judge me. Don't judge me. But I like to have shrimp cut up with cucumbers and feta cheese. And Ken's makes this northern Italian dressing. And then I like those grape tomatoes and red onions. And you put all that in, it's kind of like I guess a ceviche kind of a salad. So that's
Right.
another one of my
That
favorites.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
Really good. So, well, let me tell you, no matter, I tell people all the time, I said, listen, I'm going to be a foodie until I die. And one of my hard, fast rules is it's like, listen, if it's nasty, I'm not going to eat it. So I said, I feel like you should enjoy your food no matter what the situation is. So I enjoyed my food.
Let me
I
tell
enjoy
you, that's like the series, no better time than the present. So yes, though we may have to walk, on that line,
Yes,
a fine line, you still gotta enjoy life.
you do.
Okay, however that
Yeah,
is. Hopefully it's something not too
yeah,
crazy, but you still have to enjoy. So someone here, Monica Moody said the struggle is your purpose. Indeed.
yes, it is. It truly is. It
Indeed.
truly is.
Really
Oh,
is.
hi, Monica. That's one of my good friends in Atlanta.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, Monica. Thank you for joining. So,
Yeah.
what parting words would you like to tell those that are diagnosed with obesity? And that's another thing. Like, is anyone diagnosed with obesity, or is it a thing?
Oh,
Does that make any sense?
well, I mean, now that's one of the things that I feel like are making great strides in is that, yes, that it is more widely acknowledged that obesity is a disease. And so, yes, so it is being more openly, widely diagnosed. But I would say to anybody who is living with, I mean, we're talking 45% of the population, something like really outrageous is living with. Actually, it's 63.1 million Americans are like living with obesity. So it's something like real crazy, right? So anyway, so that's a lot of us who are living with it. First thing I would say is listen, love yourself and know it's not your fault. All the things that you thought you were like, look, I'm doing everything that I know to do, and this is not happening. You're right. You're not imagining that. It is true. It is a very complex metabolic disease, and it's not your fault. Number two, find a healthcare provider who sees you and who will listen to you and who will work with you to figure out what is the best comprehensive treatment plan for you in order to deal with this disease. Other thing is, don't give up. I mean, don't give up. If I had given up, let's say I turned 60 years old last year. And listen,
Wow.
let me tell you something. I feel amazing. I am in great health. I mean, I am living life. I really am. And so, and my younger self would have never thought that I would be where I am today in terms of my weight and being, just comfortable with where I'm at and what I've been able to accomplish with the help of good healthcare providers and a comprehensive plan. So if you're living with this, I'm telling you, there is life on the other side. There really is. And so find yourself a healthcare provider who is going to sit with you, who's going to see you, who's going to collaborate with you and walk with you through this because you deserve that. You're worth it. And you make them meet you at your worth.
I love it. Now that's some good parting words. I love
I
it.
do my best.
I love it. I love it. So how and where can viewers follow you or learn more about your advocacy?
Yes, well, I'm on Instagram. That's where I post most of the time. Stay tuned because I've got some new things coming up pretty soon. Pretty soon. So stay tuned. But you can follow me at Coach_Tedder on Instagram. And then I'm on Facebook, Michele Tedder. I think if you just, go in and Google it. But I mainly post on, and they're connected. I post mainly on Instagram. And I'm also on LinkedIn
Like,
too, Michele Tedder. I post a lot of things on LinkedIn also. That's a lot of my like more formal stuff. If you go on Instagram, you'll see some formal stuff and you'll see things about my grandbaby, my family, those type of things, in addition to my advocacy popping up
of course.
there. But
Because
you get
guess
a more
what?
comprehensive
They
picture.
all connect,
Yes,
at the end of the day.
they
So
do. They all connect. They all connect. So, but yeah, but you can hit me up and yeah, hit me up on Instagram.
okay. This was a wonderful conversation. I hope everyone was able to learn a little bit. Share the word, you know.
Hmm.
We're going to have replays up shortly. And thank you for joining. Um, it was a pleasure. I really hate that I can't see you. This
I'm
was
so
really
sorry.
difficult. I'm just looking down as if where your face would be. I really, yeah, I have to. I don't know. Maybe I need a new phone. I don't know. Maybe it's something because this is like the second episode where there was some issues, and I'm thinking it's the other person. I'm like, okay, maybe it's on my end.
Well, I can
But
see
as long as everyone sees us, so that way when we edit, it's not just me looking at the
well,
screen.
yeah. Well, maybe
Oh,
you'll be able to see the replay, but I see your beautiful face, and it is
oh, thank
yeah,
you.
it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully we'll be able to do something like this again.
I hope so. Like as we're talking, I'm thinking in my head, plus some other guests that I had on where things was in my head. But this year, maybe we'll make something happen.
Mm.
Again, it's still in my head.
It'll
Hi,
come.
Valerie. So thank you, thank you, my guest Michele, for joining me this evening. Thank you guys who joined in today, and I'll talk to you all
All
soon.
right.
Have a wonderful
All right.
weekend.
See you. Bye bye.